Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for watching this video. I just want to share some news with you. The world is amazing. The world is amazing. Right now we are in times that are just hard to believe. So before coming on to this video, I was just thinking about what I wanted to talk about. And there's a few things that are mulling around in our community at this moment in time. We're currently looking at facilitators of change and looking at how we facilitate change, how we step into that space in our school of ambassadors of change and facilitators of change. How do we show up? So we've got a school. This is part of a school that you're watching this video either because you're interested or you don't know. And so this is about sharing with you how we rock here or how we don't. So just before thinking about what I was going to do, I just started to do the filming and I went to click off a video and it came up. I didn't see what it was. And it was about enlightenment. It's just like, okay, you can't make this stuff up. And so it's a 2-minute video talking about enlightenment, why you should stop searching and seeking for enlightenment. And that's the conversation that I wanted to have, which was about teaching. It was about education, but it links in to what I wrote this morning. So I just want you to pause for a moment. This is a moment of pause. Imagine that you are in a room at the front. So you just imagine that you're in a room, you're at the front, you are leading a conversation, and there is thousands of people in the room. Just breathe that in. The question, what are you talking about? Because the message, we only have one message in this world. We really only have one message in this world. And you can either be moving away from it or towards it. But if you're moving towards it, then you're in the right place. But in a way, the message is one message, the message of love. As our world remains in crisis and chaos of the mind, the time has come for the heart to begin to fully embody its truth. It has permission to fully align to its truth. Can you imagine that for a moment? We've actually been given permission for our hearts to fully come into alignment. Now, that might not mean much to you if you're in the head. You might be thinking, what the heck is she on about? But if you feel it in your heart, breathe it in. Can you feel? Can you feel that we can actually begin to be accepted from the heart, that our divine, emotional, intellectual properties that lie in our hearts, our intellect that is there within our hearts, our divine intellect is actually being received in our planet at this moment in time. Now, if you're somebody who's like me, who's been highly sensitive and what they call empathic, and hasn't really read into many things, but has just felt, then you'll know that that's really a powerful statement. And in fact, I can feel that wobble of emotion. So let me continue. It no longer has to hide. The heart has no longer has to hide for fear of ridicule or being crushed. The heart of compassion now has the permission and full responsibility to shine light, to shine in the darkest of places, to illuminate truth, transparency, and authenticity. Qualities for humanity to embrace unity together. Learning how to learn again or relearn, learning from each other through story. The real impact on our education. How are we in being? Holding our divinity and compassion for each other. So, stood in front of a crowded room, I would ask all those who have a calling to serve humanity, tell me your story. I'm here to listen. If you can hear yourself as someone who feels through listening, and good news, good leaders empower others with compassion. And that's really relevant because right today, there's a real big decision that has been made with regards to our facilitators of change. It's very difficult when I'll speak to I. It's been a very difficult journey of creating a school for ambassadors of change, facilitators of change. Because it's not like any normal school or any school that you've been used to. So you go to school, often we get a bit forced to go to school. Our parents tell us that's where we have to go. We don't have a choice in many cases, apart from those that are homeschooled. And even then, our parents are still in control sometimes. And so we go to school. So we're talking the traditional school process. We go to school and we're just told to go. And we fit, we're carefully fitted into this box. And as we grow up as adults, we continue to fit into different boxes or applications as we write in the boxes. And then we get to a stage, I got to a stage in my life that was kind of, hold on a minute, I don't feel like a box is actually the shape that I want to be in. Mine is more fluid. I want to be softer edges. So we start playing around with the box and realizing that actually we can change the box. But then you've got all these other boxes that are around you. I've had lots of boxes that have been around me where people have been wanting to stay in that box, and they come into the Tell Your Story process and they still want to maintain a part of being in that box, being in the old way of doing things and being. And so one of the things is that we go in and we have our certificates, but in the Tell Your Story process, the certificate is you. The certificate is your story. And the purpose of it is to really delve into the darkest of your places, to really go into places that you've never dared to kind of like go in there before. Why? Because that's where you're going to find the treasure. All those places that you've hidden aspects of self. I always thought that everybody knew my story. I just felt like I was wearing my heart on my sleeve. And so even down to the point where the book originally was just images. And somebody said to me, well, where's your story? Even though I'd had insight of being included, I was still excluding myself. And that was what ego was doing for me, was excluding me from everybody else, was making me feel different and separated. And even down to putting my name on the game and putting my name in the book process. I was not wanting to put my name in there because it was kind of like, this isn't about ego, this is about a gift back to humanity. And my name's irrelevant on that. I've just gone through the process of experience, and that's okay. I want to be included. And so the reason for sharing this is because what we are doing is we're remembering, we're going back to relearn, to re-undo, to unravel in many ways. Not necessarily going back into our past to do that, but just observing and reflecting and noticing a pattern. And so what I'm noticing now as more people are coming through the book telling process and facilitating, then it's the facilitators that I'm currently focused on. So I'm noticing this pattern of the storytelling. It's a very familiar pattern. It's one of forgetting and then remembering. So as people go through the process, they start remembering. And then as they remember, they step up into this leadership, because we're all leaders. And what I've noticed with the facilitators is that, because this isn't a dictatorship, this isn't about you have to do this. There's certain standards that we have, but the process takes you through a standard that if you can't get through that standard, you can't meet the grade, if you will. And that's a hard thing for me to get my head around. I choose my heart. And my heart says to me that there's no point in doing this process if you're not prepared to do the work. There's no point in doing the work and thinking, oh, brilliant, I've ticked all my chapters off, and now I'm just going to sit and wait to see what's put in front of me. It's not like that. It's really interesting, because people want to do this process because they feel that they want to do the process. They want to challenge themselves. And what I'm witnessing is we've got some facilitators on board. What I'm noticing is my reaction, my response, my reaction to their journey. It's big. It's really, really big. It's, you go through the process and you own that. That's your baby. That book is your baby. So from it being a process to then owning it and then letting go of it, and that's the action. Bringing in and then we're giving out. So it's about give and take. It's that notion all the way, give and take. And that's the beauty of this process. I didn't see it because I'm so used to giving that I didn't see the takers. This process can't have takers. It's about how do we take and how do we give? How do we give and then how do we take? How do we receive? It's not even take, it's receive. So each step of the process is about how do we receive each other? And is this space for everybody? No, it's not for everybody. And the reason is because I know for myself, I've grown in the last 12 months. I've had some experiences in the last 12 months that have been on a real personal level that have challenged me. Because I'm often very open and very giving, and there's a boundary. And over the last 12 months, that boundary has been highlighted to me. And it's made me realise that what we offer here is absolutely priceless. It's priceless. And at the same time, it should never be underestimated because it's a small contribution that people make. That should never be measured in terms of what you receive here. People being in this space are so grateful. Some people are so grateful because of the lessons that they learn. I'm grateful for being in this space because what's been created is an opportunity to constantly learn that heartbeat of growing. When we sit in this space with each other and we have that heartbeat and we're watching each other and we're learning from each other because the triggers that are being released in us, each person is so precious in terms of the gifts that they offer. If people don't want to be part of this space, if they don't want to interact, if they don't want to learn, if they don't want to be asking questions, if they don't want to carry out actions, simple actions that are requested from them, they're not meant to be in this space. They need to go and have their lessons elsewhere. I won't call out who I not need to call out. I'm calling out every single one of us who thinks for one, and I have to thank the teacher who's given me this lesson to be able to observe and to be able to reflect upon this, because each of us are teachers for each other, and that our actions allow us the space to be able to sit back and think and feel and wonder, is this the correct, right action to facilitate change? If somebody asks, can you do something for me? And a week later, it's not done or acknowledged. If you just, there's so many things, but I'm not going to do that here. We're having a facilitation session this week where we are going to be talking to a couple of facilitators. We're going to record it as well, so that when you get into facilitating, you'll be able to see what we're talking about. But what we're doing is highlighting our standards, the standards that are meant to be met. Nobody is forcing anybody to be in this space. Nobody is telling anybody that they need to be here. But it's the best place for you to be. The reason why, it's about continuously improving and stepping up your standards and doing it together. That each of us working together, brothers and sisters, means that real life interactions, real life issues are explored in our process just by being and having that connection with like-hearted people. So imagine that you're stood in front of that crowd of people and you can no longer use anything from your past. You can't use your education. You can use your experiences, but you can't use your educations, your qualifications, any influence that you've had from privilege. You can't use that anymore. What conversation would you have? Because this really is about, do we lead from the front and dictate? When I was lecturing, I was talking to hundreds of people, and I remember it never felt comfortable for me, because here I could feel all these beings of light, just eager to learn and eager to share and eager to absorb information. But in a way, I wanted them to absorb the information of themselves, to really build some connections and bonds with themselves, because one person talking of their experiences is just a waste of resources. So if you can hold space for thousands of people in order for them to share their stories, to share their experiences, that's the enlightenment that we are seeking in this world. It's called being. There's nothing to gain in our world. It all comes from within. So this is about relearning who we really are and placing it in ourselves and feeling comfortable with ourselves and knowing that that's from where the truth resides. Thank you for listening. I'm hoping that you've listened with your heart, because it's been a bit of a heady conversation, but it's also about releasing and putting that truth out there, and that's so important for me. That's all that this is about, is speaking truth. And that's a really high standard that we should all place for ourselves. Is life is about speaking truth. If you can't speak truth, this isn't the space for you. I thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing again with you the next time. Bye bye for now.